Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. The parable of the talents. I think if it's not the second most well-known parable that Jesus has given, it's definitely top 5. I think the number 1 best-known parable is the parable of the prodigal son. And pretty much everyone's heard that at one time or another. People inside the church, people outside the church, it doesn't seem to matter there. But as far as other parables are concerned, I think this one is also very, very well known. That there is a master who entrusts his servants with a large amount of money, and some do well by investing, but one is kind of scared and nervous, and he buries it, and he gets in a lot of trouble. So this parable of the talents, not only do we hear within the church periodically, but I think even outside of the church. If people know a parable at all, they know the parable of the prodigal son, and they might know this one too. It's been so influential, as a matter of fact, that the word here, talent, has worked into our English language. So when we say talent, and we mean a gift or an ability or some sort of innate quality that we have, something we know how to do or something a part of us, it actually comes from this parable. That a talent, as it's used here, was a weight of measure. It was basically like kind of this big jar. That was a talent. If you filled it up all the way to the top, that was equivalent to a talent. When we're referring to talents of silver here, it's saying so much silver, like enough to fill one of those big jars. However many pounds of silver it might be. And so when we're talking about that amount of a precious metal, we're talking about something substantial. All right, this is not however much change you have in your pocket or all the loose things that you can dig out of the cushions of your couch. This is a big, large jar filled with silver. Silver. And even back in the day, it basically represented, as a unit of measurement or weight, anywhere between 8 to 10 years of daily wages. So this master has entrusted these servants with a ton of money. This would be equivalent to maybe even with 1 talent, giving somebody today about $500,000. And you catch that one of these guys is given. I have personally never been entrusted with $2 to $3 million. I am up for the challenge if anyone wants to try. Happy to oblige. But this is a big deal here. This is a lot of money that is being entrusted to the care of these servants. So let's put this in the context here, even if we've heard this a million times. This is a lot of money, a lot of resources, a lot of talents that they have been granted, knowing that the master will return. They may not know the day or the hour, and indeed the master will return like a thief in the night with little warning. Like labor pains, that once they start, you just better get on that train because it ain't stopping. That master will arrive, and you've either done your job or you haven't. 2 of them have wisely invested. This was like some sort of bull market going on, because both of them doubled their investment. Fantastic. Tell me who your broker is. I want him. They put it to work. They invest in something, or they have that money out for being lent, or whatever it might be, but both of them double what they have. So when the master returns, you're like, okay, here's what you gave me, and this is how good I took care of things. Here's all the extra I made working for you. One of them, he's nervous, he's anxious, and he's kind of panicky, or maybe he's freaked out, and he doesn't want to take any risk that he might somehow screw this up. By golly, I'm not going to lose his money. Like, that's his big principle here. I'm not going to do my job, I'm not going to do my work, but I won't lose anything. So he buries it, When the master comes, he gets in trouble. Why? Does he get in trouble because he didn't manage to lose anything? No, of course not. He gets in trouble because he didn't do his job. Your job was not to protect it. Your job was to use it. Your job was to invest it. Even if you had stuck it in the bank, I would have gotten a little interest out of it. You, on the other hand, have done nothing. And if his critique seems kind of rough, and if his critique seems kind of mean, or if the consequences of this seem a little much, then I think there is a way to explain it that might kind of help this out. Now, we have again probably heard this parable many times, and we have heard it in relation to our own personal gifts and abilities. The things we know how to do, our skills. What are we doing with what we have and what we know how to do with our capabilities in order to offer a return on the master who gave them to us? And so that's why I brought in what I did. I figured it's been a while, and we were about due, so I have once again brought in props. We have a toolbox. So I tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a real estate developer and contractor who had buildings and developments all over the land. And he built skyscrapers, and he built neighborhoods, and he built a shopping center. And he had 3 foremen. And he took those 3 foremen, and he each gave them a toolbox with the requisite tools to do a particular job. One had this project, and one had that project, and one had the final project. And he said, I'm going to be gone for a while. You get busy with the tools that I've given you. I'll see you when I see you. And off they went. And at some point, he comes back. And he notices that the first 2 guys have finished these beautiful projects. Took the tools you gave me, and I took the blueprints and I built. And now you have this skyscraper, or this shopping center, or this neighborhood. And he goes to the one guy, and the one guy says, see, here's your toolbox. I kept it in my truck. Because I know you're sort of picky and particular, and I didn't want to lose one, and I didn't want to break one. Because I thought, man, if I give you a broken tool, I'll lose my job. But I know it's been 6 months. Here are your tools, safe and sound, haven't opened them once. What happens to that guy? He's fired. He is fired. You just spent 6 months with the tools you needed to do your job, and you did zippo. Even today, we know that guy just lost his job. So now take it in the context of the parable that we just read. That's why the consequences seem so dire. It's not just that he was entrusted with talent, he was also entrusted with a task. The other 2 understood this. And the third guy, even though he knew there would be judgment at the end, he was not only too nervous to try, he didn't even bother to attempt. So to return the tools back to the developer saying, well, at least I didn't break anything, falls below a minimum standard of why they were given those tools in the first place. Right? So then the question becomes, what's in the toolbox? This is my toolbox. It's got some stuff in it. Hammer. Board. Sure what I'm building yet? Really? this is not necessarily a toolbox that you take to a job site, but it may be representative of a toolbox that you have been entrusted with by the Master. What do you know how to do? What are your abilities and skills? What are your experiences and your resources? Now, many of you know that my undergraduate degree is in business administration. I was a management major. And one of the blessings of that kind of training was it had me to be aware and focused on identifying and properly using resources. My own, others. What are the assets and resources that might be brought to bear for a project to be completed or a job to be done? And sometimes those resources are physical things, and the hammer and the tools, and sometimes they are people and their energy and their devotion, and sometimes they are their skills or their abilities or their experiences or their temperaments. But to be able to identify on a broad base and even with detail what are the resources that we truly possess, even some things that might surprise us, but that can be brought to bear and used effectively and well to get the job done. So here's where it comes back in. Your toolbox has been filled by the Master himself. And we are to return them to him well worn, well used, for his glory, and the upbuilding of his people, for the building of his kingdom. And he doesn't care if his tools come back dinged or dented, but he does want them employed and used. There are jobs out there to do. There are jobs here in the church. There are jobs out in the neighborhood, in the community, for friends, for families, for God's holy kingdom. And you have been equipped to do them. You have been offered a toolbox full of tools. And they're different than my tools, and they're different than the person sitting next to you. But your toolbox is full of resources and assets, full of abilities and full of skills, full of experience, know-how, full of time, full of talent, and full of treasure. So we're getting close, very close to a stewardship season. And I want us to be aware of it. I want us to be thinking about it. And frankly, I'm just not one who regularly preaches the biblical tithe. And that may be a failing on my part, because I kind of take it as a given and as sort of an assumed that we ought to be offering our first fruits unto the Lord. We ought to keep these doors open, and we ought to keep things rolling and moving, and we ought to be able to give out of worship, out of praise, for God's glory, for the upbuilding of his people. We ought to take the 10% out of what we make first and say, Lord, I trust you for the other 90%. But it's not just about our money. Never has been, and it never will be. That's why a parable talking about talents of silver has been translated over the generations to very clearly and obviously refer to the talents of his people. You're going to build something? Can you fix it? Good. There is someone who needs that. There's a church that needs maintenance and fixing. There are people in your life who need this help. Can you help them? Then do so. Do not sit on your talent. Do not bury the silver or put the tool in your truck saying, well, at least I didn't break it or lose it. Use it. Can you cook or can you bake? Can you offer food to those in need? How about just a cup of coffee for a friend or someone hurting? Something beautiful that you can offer to someone else? The gift of artistic ability, or just a willingness to sit with a kindergartner and color? Are you good with numbers? Facts and figures? Is there something that you can do to utilize the gifts that you've been given or help others to utilize them effectively and efficiently? Can you open up your home? Give of what you have and who you are to those who may need it the most. Can you be a race car driver? No. Are there any kids around? Maybe your own? Grandkids? or just children here, children out there who could use just someone giving a darn, someone willing to spend some time, even just sitting on the floor and playing with them. Maybe computer skills, maybe something medical, or to help with the alleviation of pain. Maybe a light in darkness. Somebody needs it the most. Maybe just playing ball. Reading a story. Offering comfort. Maybe you can just give somebody a call. The garden. Offer the cold cup of water to those who are in need. To give of what you have. So God's people can be blessed. His sanctuary can be maintained. He can be glorified and praised. He can be trusted in to provide for us no matter what. And being trusted with His Word, to read, mark, learn, and inwardly digest until it's a part of us, until it nourishes us, until it strengthens us, and becomes such a part of us that everything we do and everything we say becomes a reflection of Him. And to open it up and to know. And maybe even just offering our hearts of love for the Lord and for each other. Maybe it doesn't always feel that way, but your toolbox is full, I promise. I promise. It may look like that, it may look totally different, but it is full. Do not bury it. Do not hide it. Do not neglect it. Don't be afraid of it. He doesn't care if the tools come back dented and dinged, but He does want them used. As a matter of fact, bring them back dirty. Bring them back beaten up. Bring them back scuffed up because we have been using them to get the job done, to help build His kingdom, to help reach out to those in need and care for them, to love them, to draw them to Him, and to give Him praise and glory with all that we have, with all that we are. That's our job. That's our job. You have been given a job to do, but you've also been given the tools to do it. Be willing to examine and consider just how you have been equipped to fulfill this role, to complete this project, and to do this job. For none of us know how much time until the Master returns. None of us know how much time we have within this mortal life or before all time is complete in Him. He may indeed come like a thief in the night, so get busy now. And don't leave anything underground, under a seat, or stuck in your truck. Use it faithfully and well for God's glory, for the upbuilding of His people. That's how you be a good servant. That's how you be a good steward. That's how you take what He has given you, what He's trusted you with, what He desires a return on investment from. That's how you take how God has equipped you, and you get the job done.